But this really has been, as I said yesterday, the Seinfeld summer for Mark Carney, a big show about nothing. You know, I think specifically about George Costanza. You remember George Costanza? He was a legend. George Costanza had this great episode where he had this fancy, high-paying job with a corner office, and he didn't do any work, like literally none, but he wanted to look busy, so he would storm up and down the hallways carrying file folders. He would leave the lights on in his car in front of the office building on the weekend, even though he wasn't there.
This is the kind of energy that we can expect when the House of Commons returns on Monday from Pierre Poilievre. He's got Mark Carney on the run, and things are about to get very interesting. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Johnny Says So. The weekend is here, summertime is winding down, and you all know what that means. The House of Commons is all set to begin on Monday, and our elected officials have to get back to work after enjoying a nice summer vacation and the entire winter off because Justin Trudeau resigned, prorogued Parliament, and stalled everything so the Liberals could get their collective shit together. And now, the opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, actually has a seat. And he's been having some real base takes lately, and things are about to get really interesting. So the first issue I want to bring up and what we can expect from the House of Commons is mass immigration and the temporary foreign worker program. Check this out. This out of CBC News. Popular support for more immigration has cratered. Politicians are taking note. Yeah, of course they're taking note now, after 3/4 of the country are expressing concern over our immigration system. Numbers like that you can't ignore. And it's pretty wild to think how different this is from just a few years ago when mass immigration was an issue only brought up by the PPC. It's what we call a third rail. No party wants to actually touch it. But now, thanks to Pierre Poilievre constantly bringing it up over the summer, Mark Carney is sort of forced to admit that there's a problem here. So let's listen.
That program has a role. It has to be focused in terms of its role. And it's part of what we're reviewing. It's part of what we will be discussing, how well the temporary foreign worker program is working and how our overall immigration system is working. We've been absolutely clear as a government that we want, and we're putting in place policies so that the overall level of immigration as a proportion of the population will decline from around 7% today to around 5% several years from now.
5% from 7% is still pretty high. So let's take a look at these numbers. This is from immigrationstatistics.ca. So this graph breaks everything down by group. So in the blue, you have the temporary foreign worker program. In the green, you have the study permit, and they can work part-time 24 hours per week. And in the red, you have the international mobility program, which is really interesting because the last 3 years, you can see that it is by far the largest group of newcomers to the country. And there's a few things interesting about this graph. The most obvious being is that every year since Justin Trudeau was elected in 2015, it's gone up and up and up, except for 2020, when most people's jobs were deemed non-essential. They were still able to bring in 2018 levels of immigration. So when Mark Carney says that his government has always been clear on this issue, I would like to point out that he has been behind the scenes with Justin Trudeau for most of this. Some economic advisor, right?
Now, the biggest contributor to immigration is not temporary foreign workers. It's a variety of other factors. When I talk to businesses around the country, particularly in Quebec, but elsewhere across the country, their number one issue is tariffs, and their number two issue is access to temporary foreign workers. Okay?
What he just said there really gives up the game. He just admitted the real reason that the Liberal Party has been constantly increasing the levels of temporary foreign workers coming into Canada, and that is that they are beholden to the interests of big business, certainly not the interests of Canadians, and definitely not the interests of the temporary foreign workers that these businesses end up exploiting. Now, Pierre Poilievre hits the nail on the head here when he makes this point.
Thank you. This will be the final question.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. Mal Hamidi of the Canadian Press. Are you concerned that the consensus in Canada on immigration is slipping? And what would you do, what will you do as a opposition leader to address this issue?
Thank you. Very good question. It is really sad what has happened to the immigration system over the last decade. Before this Liberal government, there was a consensus. Canadians welcomed immigrants in generous numbers, but in numbers that we could absorb. We had enough housing, health care, and jobs for people who came in. Everyone integrated well, lived in beautiful neighborhoods side by side, all different faces from different places and races getting along in harmony. It's incredible to think, we had the system of immigration that was the envy of the world. Literally, other countries from all around the world said, how did Canada do it? 10 years of Liberal government, the rest of the world is looking at us and saying, how did the Liberals screw this up so badly? They've been adding people 3 times faster than homes and jobs, which has created shortages. They brought in too many too fast. They've allowed massive abuses of the international student, temporary foreign worker, and asylum claim system with rampant fraud that happened right under their nose. And as a result, our youth can't find jobs or homes. And so it is very sad that the Liberals have been able to destroy the system so badly in such a short time. Mark Carney promised to be different. Instead, he's worse. He's kept Justin Trudeau's immigration numbers. He's allowing corporations to bring in a record number of temporary foreign workers this year at a time when youth employment numbers are their worst in 3 decades.
Now, there's a whole demographic of kids out there that are now just becoming eligible to vote, and they remember back in high school when they couldn't find a job. This is very real, guys, and it's something we've all noticed. I'm just thinking back to when I was in high school, and it wasn't that hard to find a job. And it wasn't that uncommon just 10 years ago to walk through town and see all sorts of high school students doing various levels of work. They'd be at the grocery store, they'd be at McDonald's, they'd be at the gas station, whatever. It was very common to see all types of Canadian kids working. And now that's not the case.
So while our young people can't find jobs, employers are able to exploit temporary foreign workers by giving them lower wages and terrible working conditions. Let me be clear. Immigrants are not to blame for this mess. They simply followed the rules that the Liberals created, or the lack of rules. They just want to have a better life. And in many cases, they are the victims of a system that abuses and rips them off at the same time as destabilizing our housing, job market, and social services. So the blame does not rest with immigrants or with the broader Canadian population. It is 100% the result of reckless and irresponsible Liberal decisions. Our approach will be to end the temporary foreign worker program so that Canadian jobs go to Canadian workers, to bring the numbers down, bring in the right numbers and the right people to fill jobs we actually need to have filled, for which there are no Canadians, to keep criminals out of this country by having stronger security standards at our borders, and always and everywhere to put Canada first in all of our immigration decisions.
Isn't it funny that the left constantly goes after Pierre Poilievre for being some sort of anti-immigrant xenophobe, when in reality, what he just said there sounds a lot more reasonable and sympathetic to the plight of these temporary foreign workers than Mark Carney, who clearly just wants to use them for the business interests that he represents. But that's not going to be the only problem for Carney once the House of Commons resumes, because he has this to deal with. Canada delaying plan to force automakers to hit EV sales targets. Remember this one, guys? For a long time, the Liberals under Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney have been saying that they are going to force Canadians to buy electric vehicles by 2030. And now they've walked that plan back.
He's flip-flopped. After being a passionate advocate for banning gas-powered vehicles, calling for them to be banned by 2030 in his book, Values, which, by the way, was much more aggressive than Trudeau's plan, to ban them in 2035, he's finally admitted that the Conservatives were right, just like we were right on the carbon tax. But he's doing a clumsy retreat, saying that he's going to delay this mandate. So now, businesses who would otherwise consider investing in automaking here in Canada will have to put that investment on hold while Mark Carney dithers, for another year to try and figure out how he can ban people from putting gas and diesel in their trucks and cars. Mark Carney can't even get his flip-flops right.
So not only is Carney completely incapable of bringing forward these schemes that Canada clearly doesn't want, like the EV mandate or the carbon tax, things which, by the way, would probably be going forward if it wasn't for a strong opposition, he's also completely incapable of bringing forward the things that Canadians do want, desperately, like the things that he campaigned on. Major infrastructure projects, pipelines, that sort of thing. You know, build Canada strong. He's done none of it. It's been all talk all summer. Truly George Costanza. And Pierre Poilievre is calling him out on it.
What we have today is Mark Carney, after 6 months, has not approved a single national project anywhere in Canada. It's really incredible. He was elected saying that we are in an unprecedented crisis and that we needed to move with unimaginable speed. So what has he done? He's not permitted a single major mine, pipeline, nuclear plant, or anything else. What he's done today is announce that he's going to send an email to an office that isn't even fully staffed up yet, which will one day consider possibly approving 5 projects. This is pathetic. Do you know the federal government is blocking 39 projects that are in the regulatory system? 39. Scott Moe says there's another 100 projects in Saskatchewan alone that are waiting on federal decisions. The message to Mark Carney and the Liberals is they need to do one thing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Get out of the way. That is the energy that we can expect to see from Poilievre in the House of Commons when Carney finally has to answer for his summer of nothingness. But don't worry, guys. Carney's going to tell you everything is fine. Look at this. All of a sudden, we went from building at the speeds not seen in generations to 4 years to get shovels in the ground.
The second is, yes, some of those projects, shovels will be in the ground, they'll be moving forward. I'll take one project with what we're shifting is the timeline when those shovels start, which is high-speed rail, where the process of specifying routes and approvals and doing the engineering was slated to take 8 years. We think we can do it in 4. We certainly can organize the government's component of that within 4, now that we have the authorities that we do. That's what we're going to do. So in that case, the test on the TGV will be the start of the actual construction of the project within your 5-year horizon.
So Carney is busy setting up yet another bureaucracy to try to convince you that he's making good on his election promises. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre is focusing on the issues that actually matter to Canadians, like mass immigration, crime, castle doctrine, and the EV mandates, all that stuff. So I'm certainly interested to see what's going to happen this week when Carney is finally held accountable in the House of Commons with a real opposition. But that's going to be my show for today, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd like to know if you think Mark Carney is actually going to be at question period or if he's going to try to weasel his way out of it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Smash the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Peace.
Johnny from Nova Scotia says thank you. Hey, Johnny from Nouvelle-Écosse, il dit merci, thank you.
Thanks to you. God
Thank you
bless
so much.
you.
Perfect.
We're from Quebec.
Yeah, Quebec.